Welcome to the model city. Farmer Shankar Magar once grew sugarcane here. Now his farmland has given way to shiny glass buildings. India's first so-called smart city was built on his fields. Around the clock, there are people working here for customers all over the world.
15 years ago, this was all just fields. Now an entire city has been built on land that I used to farm. Here in Magarpatta City, we now have people working in 26 IT parks.
Magarpatta is a showcase city. It reflects everything that India would like to be: efficient, clean and safe. It was built by investors with the promise of rapid growth and a new prosperity. Smart cities like this one are now planned for areas all over the country. It's hoped they will bring the kind of progress India is looking for. We've come to Shankar Magar's home. He's telling his two grandchildren how life suddenly changed when the city was built. It was a dramatic transformation.
Look, this was our old house. The cowshed was right next to it. That's where we kept our livestock.
The family owned 35 hectares of land. They turned it over to investors who now run the new city.
As a farmer, I only had one set of clothes. I would wash my clothes in the evening and leave them out to dry so that I could wear them again the next day to the market. That's what life was like back then.
India is looking to modernize. Eight new cities are to be built between the capital New Delhi and the financial hub Mumbai. The first one will be Dillera, dubbed the Dream City by its planners. Dillera is to be the epitome of efficiency and luxury. It's a dream that India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is committed to turning into reality. Dillera is also said to be a smart city, a perfect world with a perfect design, as highlighted in this promotional video.
India is going to emerge as one of the world's largest construction markets as it adds millions of homes.
The government wants to build 100 smart cities throughout India. In some cases, existing cities will be retrofitted with modern technology, while others will be built from scratch.
For the first time, we're going to run a competition in India to determine where the smart cities will be built.
These intelligent urban centers come with all the latest technology. Energy will come from renewable resources. Security is an absolute top priority. And a network traffic control system is designed to avoid congestion on the road. These Indian cities are to compete with the world's most advanced urban centers. We've joined two real estate agents who want to show us the land where the new Dillera Dream City is to be built.
In 3 to 4 years, the investment will have paid off. The government is planning huge projects.
The entrance gate to the residential area has already been built. The farmer who owns this land wants a share of the €10 billion project. He's divided his land into individual plots. One of the agents tells us there's an industrial park just 4 kilometers from here, where there will be 800,000 new jobs. He's convinced in 3 or 4 years' time, this will be a top location. They tell us the price for land is set to soar in the coming years, and that most plots of land in this area have already been sold.
Let me show you on the map. Opposite here will be Dillera International Airport, serving both passengers and freight. 92 hectares are reserved for that.
A road sign is so far the only evidence of the planned airport. But in just 2 years' time, it's all supposed to be ready. That's when the first residents are set to move in. The government is expecting a rapid economic miracle. In just 15 years' time, the new Dilera is set to house 2 million people. India's looking to reinvent itself here at high speed. Right now, the land where the new Dilera smart city is to be built is still home to farmers and their families. The state of Gujarat is booming. It recently recorded the greatest economic growth in India. But most people in Gujarat still live in rural communities, like here in Dilera. They struggle to imagine what life will be like when their village disappears and is replaced by a huge modern city. It's not actually possible for the government to simply seize people's land. The law stipulates that 70% of the landowners must approve the sale before the new city can be built. So the residents have begun holding regular meetings at the local temple. The government is keen to move ahead and has promised compensation if the villagers agree to leave their land. But they are refusing to go.
Even if the government stacks up money from the ground to the sky, we're not going.
95,000 people in 22 villages are required to leave their homes to make way for the Dilera Dream City. They're supposed to move elsewhere and give up their ancestral lands. But what they actually want to do is continue farming. For generations, it's the only life these families have known. And the next generation is not prepared for modern life in the city.
Children here can only go to school until 8th grade. If the government is really interested in promoting our development, they should first set up classes going to 12th grade.
If we have no land left to farm, we won't be able to find wives for our sons. Who would want to marry into a family that has no land?
The government has made the farmers an offer. It would buy 50% of their land and replace the remaining 50% with a plot of land in another location. Jadav Hanubai is the third generation of his family to work as a cotton farmer. He owns 40 hectares of land. When there's not much rain, he grows wheat, but when there's plenty of rain, he plants cotton, as it brings in more money. During the harvest, he employs up to 20 day laborers for the time-consuming task of gathering in the cotton. These workers include children. That's not unusual in India. For many families in rural areas, harvest time is the one opportunity to earn money.
We farmers can't do anything else but farm. We didn't have a good school education. Growing crops is the only thing we know how to do. The companies that want to move here won't benefit us. They won't employ people like me.
They say they need help to ensure the next generation can make the leap into modernity. Without that, all they can do is continue their traditional lifestyle of farming the land. Some farmers made the mistake of selling their land to real estate speculators. Chowdan Bangwanbai is one of them. He turned his 10 hectares of land into cash. He didn't want to do it. It was his 3 brothers who talked him into selling the family estate. Now his farming days are over. A new city will soon be built on his land.
I've become a day laborer. I'm dependent on others to give me work. Life was better when I had my own land. Now the land is gone, and so is the money. We got money for the land, and now we've used it all up. If I still had my land, I could plant wheat and millet, and we could live well off that.
Farmers like Chowdan Bangmanbai will not share in the profit made by the speculators. The economic boom that everyone here is expecting will pass him by. Those who simply sell their land, as he did, lose the means of earning an income, both for themselves and for future generations. It's others who then stand to make a profit from their land. In Magarpatta, the model smart city, things turned out exactly as many critics said they would. India's first smart city has been designed exclusively for the financial elite. Those less well off have simply been overlooked. While local residents have made a good life for themselves in their smart world, the workers who do all the low-paid jobs are forced to live outside the city. But one thing does make this model city different. The investor has turned the former landowners into shareholders. Satish Magar is the man in charge here. It was his idea to encourage international firms to come to Magarpatta. 70 farming families have given their land so that the city could be built. In return, they received shares proportionate to the size of their land. By giving them a share in the profits, he was able to win their support.
See, normally what happens in India, it's across the country, not only in Pune. When the farmer sells his land, he has three major things to do to spend his money. He drinks a lot, he has big weddings, and he builds a big house, which everything goes in no time. Land pooling by government and giving to developers doesn't make any sense. The basic fundamental difference between the governmental agencies and us here is that in such model you have to learn to share. If you want everything for yourself, then you cannot do it. And that is what the government wants to be a developer also, and they want to have the cake and eat it too. It becomes difficult. You need to share everything.
The former sugarcane farmer Shankar Magar certainly approves of this new urban life. Only his clothing reveals that he was originally a farmer.
We've gradually become businessmen. I have income through my shares in the city. I benefit from the profits. Today, I own a restaurant near the cyber city, 2 restaurants in the Seasons Mall, and 1 in the Phoenix Mall. We also have a construction company. My sons look after the business. I look after them.
Magarpatta is the first privately administered township in the country. People don't just come here to work. Some choose to live in Magarpatta because they appreciate the benefits of a well-run city, managed by a business executive. The city administration also provides for leisure activities. There are 4 committees whose sole task is to plan Magarpatta's social life. Priyanka Maheshwari has lived in Magarpatta for 6 years. These days, she rarely strays outside the closely guarded city. She spends most of her free time here in a radius of 4 kilometers from her workplace. As long as she stays here, she feels safe.
My husband travels quite a bit. He's mostly out of the town. He's out and I am living here alone. I don't have to worry about the safety or security or even loneliness because there is so much to do outside. There are health clubs, there are jogging tracks, there are malls. I can go out, do whatever I want. It doesn't affect me. This is what I would call freedom living in India without having this in the back of my head that, oh, somebody's going to chase me, or whether I'm safe, whether I'm secure here. There's no that kind of worry in my head when I'm out.
The Magarpatta enclave and its 50,000 residents are guarded by a private security service. The international firms who work here also want safeguards against crime and terrorist attacks. Managing Director Satish Magar has designed the security concept to be all-encompassing.
We have real-time data of every person who lives here, including the age, whether there are tenants, whether they are here, they leave from here. So the entire data for security reasons is there. We have more than 850 cameras which are monitoring every movement, and there is a command center where there is 24/7, there are people watching what is happening. That helped us so much that we have no thefts.
But he's not willing to show us the command center. Magarpatta is the private property of the company that built it, and as the director of that company, he gets to make the rules. Magarpatta has been so successful that he is now planning to build 2 more such cities.
We repeat the same format of the residential areas, the recreational areas, and the IT park, or the knowledge center which is there around. So that's all been put into it.
The privately run city is considered a model for the future, one that can work anywhere in the world. A number of other Asian countries have also experimented with the concept. But some people find the regulations too restrictive and move away again. Priyanka Kadam spent 6 years living and working in India's first smart city. After that, she'd had enough. She looked for another place to live, in a newly developed area outside Magarpatta.
The guard would not let someone even dropping you home, like if it's a guy, he cannot come to your building and drop you. He has to leave you at the gate and go. And there were a lot of restrictions. And you have to have your ID card on you all the time. Otherwise you can't enter your building. So they have these, but there's a reason for everything. They want to maintain kind of a decorum and things like that. So I moved to Amanora, and we don't have anything like that here. In Amanora, they don't have any restrictions as such.
Now Priyanka Kadam can have friends over whenever she likes, whether they are men or women. Here, outside the smart city, management rules no longer apply. We've now come to the Indian capital, New Delhi, where we're meeting with sociologist Preeti Sampath. She has done research into India's smart cities and points to the dangers of these privately governed entities. She says there's a risk that society can become overly conformative. Residents sacrifice some of their democratic rights in exchange for greater security.
What we see in the creation of these smart cities are citizen subjects who are consumers, who are necessarily adding to this kind of an economic growth agenda of private corporations and are living under private governance systems, which cannot necessarily be held accountable in the same way as the government, the state can, that you have elected into power.
Magarpatta goes by many names: smart city, enclave, township. But one thing is clear: capitalism rules, and residents are first and foremost consumers. The poor people live outside the smart city. They were here before the investors came. Now the two sides live in a symbiotic relationship. For the poor, living close to the city means the chance of earning an income. For residents inside Magarpatta, the poor are a source of cheap labor. While the perfectly planned city prospers and its residents enjoy a better life, the rest of the country is left behind. Less than half of all city dwellers in India have access to running water, and 1/3 does not have their own toilet.
Magarpatta and other 4-5 townships are there, but they are surrounded by more than 50-60 small slum pockets. And these are the people who serve those people. They work in their houses. They are the rickshaw pullers. They are the one who are vendors and sabjiwalas and things like that. So though the gated society have created an amazing atmosphere for themselves, for the rich within that gate, they are part of a bigger system, and they can survive that classism only because the poor community serve them. So there is already a relationship. Though the poor people are not staying in Magarpatta, but Magarpatta is there because of the poor people around.
Kantabai Londe came here 50 years ago, when Magarpatta was just a mass of sugarcane fields. Together with her husband, she runs a small mobile kiosk. Neither of them are allowed to enter the smart city. They would need a special permit, which they don't have. The management don't want street traders.
We don't know what will happen in the future. We built our house here. It stands on land belonging to the authorities. If they decide to expand the city, we have nowhere else to go.
The land on which they live has become more and more desirable as time goes by. Developers are already interested. Kantabai Londe and her husband push their stand along the road each day to get to the busiest area. They sell dried fish, junk food, as well as individual cigarettes, which sell for the equivalent of 14 cents each. So they're at least able to earn a living from their wealthy neighbors. But the new buildings have now almost reached their small village.
It's easier for my two sons than for us. One is working as a security guard. I don't want them to have such a hard life as I did. I hope they have a better life.
And so she stands here every evening, hoping that the money-making city won't one day swallow up her home. Inside the city, life is good. Priyanka Maheshwari and her husband come to this club regularly with their friends. A glass of beer costs the equivalent of €4. The only people in India who can afford these prices are the ones who work for an international company. The average wage in India otherwise is €130 a month. The software developers and managers here have become almost a caste of their own. They've sealed themselves off from the perceived threat outside the city walls.
I can get drunk and walk to my home without a worry. That's as safe as it gets in India.
Trust me, I have watched movies and only in Magarpatta City where I have walked home. Walked. I'm talking about walking home at 2 o'clock in the night. I don't know how many people do that in India.
This is Ahmedabad, India's 7th largest city. It was founded over 600 years ago and is steeped in history. It was once home to Mahatma Gandhi. It was from here that Gandhi started his famous Salt March in the drive for independence from Britain. Here at the bazaar, shoppers bustle around buying provisions, as they have done for centuries. Aravamutan Sriratsan is an urban planner in Ahmedabad. He too has studied the smart city concept.
So naturally people like this kind of vibrancy, but in a more controlled fashion. So it will be like a mall which pretends to be a bazaar. So gated city can pretend to have all the components. It can have a bazaar, it can have a temple, it can have a chowk, but then it won't be like this. So you will have to bring actors to animate it. You'll have to create that buzz artificially, because neither in terms of the intensity, the density and the inclusiveness, gated communities cannot have this. You'll have to orchestrate it. You need to make the citizens feel that they are in a nice, vibrant place.
We return to Dilera and the cotton farmers in the state of Gujarat. Their village is one of those standing in the way of the world's biggest infrastructure project. They too are afraid of losing their home forever. Almost half the population of India lives from farming. And yet, agriculture only accounts for around 12% of India's economic output. The government wants to redress that imbalance. Less agriculture and more industry is the goal.
In Dholera, they've had some kind of an introductory meeting with farmers from the 22 villages that are affected by the Dholera Smart City project. And because they signed their presence in that meeting, their attendance in that meeting, that was taken to be consent. So the farmers have obviously been really upset about this form of, showing consent, whereas in reality the consent was never really taken.
Two of the cotton farmers want to show us the area that they are to be reassigned to once the city is built on their land. But first they stop by one of their existing fields. The authorities have placed a road marker there, and they're worried about what it could mean.
Over there's already a road with 4 lanes. But the government wants to expand it to 6 lanes. Why do they need a 250-meter wide road here? If they take away this land to expand the road, what will happen to our farmland? They've placed this marker here so they can take away our land from us in the future.
Half an hour later, we reach our destination. We are now near the coast. The salt water has penetrated the substrata of the soil. The farmers say the land is totally unsuitable for growing anything. They were told they could irrigate the land, and then cotton or wheat would grow here. The two farmers feel that the government is not taking them seriously at all. Their farms are simply to be sacrificed in the name of economic growth.
Look, this is the land that we're supposed to get. What can we do with this? Seawater has totally saturated the ground. And then you can see roundabout there's green. When the really high tides come, this ground will be underwater. What can a farmer do with land like this?
If our village is destroyed to make way for the city, we're finished. If the village is integrated into the new city, it won't be able to survive. Our fertile land would be gone. We'd have nothing left to live from.
India's smart cities are an attempt to create a utopia. They catapult their residents into modernity while leaving the rest of the country behind. These new cities, built from scratch, are seen by many as the way forward. India could just be the start.